Take show, shot, Sheree, Joe, God knowledge.
Good morning, everybody. I am so sorry that the DTS was still left on. I was in the process of trying to turn it off, but I didn't get to it quick enough. And unfortunately, my alarm clock decided to go off an extra 10 minutes late. So I do apologize that I'm so late to the stream this morning. Well, I hope everybody's doing alright. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Don't know what it is. And there's that bats. If everybody slept okay, or for those of you who are now heading to sleep, I hope you get some good sleep. Thank you for the check-ins. So we're gonna go through our little thing, and also, lovely, lovely new peoples. It is so lovely to see you, my new voidlings. Welcome to the menagerie. Looks like we've had some more followers off stream. You added 2 playing cards to my cowboy hat. One should be a business card for a pizza place. And the other one... let me think. One of the V cards from the... If you can do a V card from the VTuber card set. Okay. I'm gonna go through the first, second, and third and say good morning to everybody who's checked in. Remember, checking in makes sure that Twitch registers you. And we have seen it in effect. That when an ad plays, the viewership goes up. But the lurkers only counted if they checked in. So I really do appreciate it when you all check in. Oh, Yoshiko, that's the point. I think these cards are made very specifically to be, you know, like that joke. Alright, Sakona, thank you for being first. Luna Rain, thank you for being second. Nelia, thank you for being third. And I'm amazed you all counted in the right order this time. Very, very impressive. Next. Good morning, Poison, and Ziggy, and Yoshiko. Good morning, Tally, and Echo, and Amy. Good morning, Akami, and Eli, and Sakona. Good morning, Punkish, and Nelia. Good morning, Full Metal Brookie. Valentia, good morning. Good morning, nap time. Go Sarah and Pink. Good morning, Xerix. Where were we? Xenix, I got lost here. And Solian, good morning, JJ and Kamikaze. Good morning, Casey and Death the Day at the Balkan. Good morning, thank you for the follow, Overlord. Good morning, Elliptical and Pinky. Good morning, Dwarf and Landmine. Good morning, Brisk Deer. Sorry, I keep yawning. Good morning, Vigi. An elliptical panda. Good morning, Carmia. Dragon. Calanthe. Good morning, Calanthe. Chadagraka, good morning. And good morning, JPS, the friendly arsonist. Today's a very, very easy day. And the voice is very grumbly today. I misplaced my beverages. Oh no. Who stole my beverages? Which one of you was it? One of you has come in here and stolen all my beverages. I found the beverages, 1 second. It's gonna be so funny one of these days when I finally have the 3D model and you're gonna see me turn around and go and actually go grab the thing that I'm looking for. And so you'll see all the times that I'm in stream and I just turn around. Alright, sweeties, one sec. Alright, beverage has been acquired. Voice will slowly get less grumbly as I. Well, enjoy your lessons, I guess. Here, we'll go hang out in the bedroom for a little while. So this week, we have finally gotten the book. Those of you who don't know, we recently talked to an author about doing some audiobook style readings. And they gave me their book and gave me permission to read it on stream. It looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. But I will say, on those days, like when I do those little the book streams at the very late at night, I will have a sign up that I will not be talking, that I'll just be reading. I'll do little pauses for speaking breaks. And I'll have the notifications as well as TTS turned off. Thank you for the hydrate. Cheers. But it's just a heads up, because I know y'all like talking to me so much. But I want to give this book the best chance to, Don't poop in my shit, how dare you. Exactly. And so it'll be a later at night stream. Not today, because today I have things after stream. Probably starting on Wednesday, yeah? Should be good. I'm looking forward to it, honestly. I am looking forward to it. And we will be recording this. We'll probably have it posted to the Discord or its own channel. And that way people can come and listen to them. Not yet, but I'm imagining it's gonna be like 9 p.m. MST. Like right before my bedtime, I'm gonna come in here, do a little read. Might do it. Yeah. Oh. And on Thursday, sweeties, I'm gonna be doing a third stream. There's a very cool content creator that I've been talking to, who is a perfumer, and we may eventually have a scent made by them, so y'all can get my cologne or perfume. But for now, we're gonna be hanging out and gaming, and we're gonna be playing the Untitled Goose Game together. It'll be much later. TTS will be turned off. All redeems will probably be turned off. But that's going to be way in the future. Right now, that person, they are working on a project they can't tell me about because they had to sign an NDA. When they're done, they're wanting to start making VTuber scents. So I've talked to them about it, and I may be getting on that list. Do I know what it will smell like? Absolutely not yet. I probably need to go through all my favorite colognes and see if we can make something similar. Oh no, during the collab, TTS will definitely be turned on. That one's fine. During the book, it'll be turned off. Yes, Overlord, there's multiple people who use this model. This is a pre-made model that you can get from Booth. I have done customization. And it's going to be an amazing scent. I hope you know this perfume is going to be amazing. Actually, there's another VTuber that y'all have compared me with a few times. I don't remember how to pronounce her name, but it begins with an S. And people have called them Papa before. Let me look up their name real quick. Oh, my favorite color is pink. Not Silas. His name is Sarian. Seiryn. Saren? Siren. Yeah. I might do a little collab with him. At least a TikTok or YouTube collab. What shade of pink? I like a pastel pink. Siren. Oh, I like that. That's a fun name. Yeah. We might be doing a little collab together. We'll see though. Alright, so this morning I wanted to do some more Minecraft. My brain was so scattered all over the place last night that we really didn't make any progress. Exactly. He's been very sweet. And he's really like, he was worried about overstepping with me a bit. And I'm like, man, you're your own person. You don't have to worry. Just because we have the same model, it's fine. And just because if you play into any bit, that's chill too. It was very cute. He was worried. I appreciated him being like, I don't want you to think I'm trying to ride on your success. And I'm like, no, it's fine, but I know he's his own person. He does his own thing. Just telling you stories. Really? I like that. We're also very close in height. I told him that he needs to measure his own height. Because my entire life I thought I was 6'3", and then I finally met my ex's dad, and he's 6'3", and I was taller than him. Turns out I was 6'4". So I'm having him check his height in the morning to be like, maybe you're secretly 6'4". Because maybe he is me. Maybe me and him are the same person. Ooh, spooky. Can you imagine? There we go. Alright, we're gonna go swap over to the gaming. Oh, I don't remember when the sister team's banned. No. Okay, and we are back at it. You'll let me know if the game gets too loud or anything, okay? Oh, we're not drowning yet. I'll get there. We can drown eventually, you and me together. No, that sounds weird. What do you mean I had you overthinking? What were you overthinking about? Good morning, Vanya. Don't you come in here exploding. Leave red bats. Drowning is, in fact, very bad for you. I've drowned in Minecraft a few times because I do very dumb things. I would never. I need to find a white horse and name it Goldshy. Thank you for the follow, Keisha. Welcome. Get in the boat. Get in the boat. We're going on adventure. Boat time. Horse doesn't fit in the boat. I'm disappointed. But I've made you stand with my armor? Oh, well, I picked it up. I've only just started this world. Horses can swim now. Yeah, but they keep throwing me off when I'm in the water. They hate me, apparently. raise the horse stamina? You're right. We'll work on it. Oh, my eyes hurt a little bit. That's not good. Why am I so tired? Should I blame you? What'd you do to me? Okay, good. I was about to say, I didn't think you could swim. Oh no, I forgot. Okay, what cringe line do I say? Vanya, you can pick the cringe line for me today if you'd like me to say the cringe line. So for those of you who don't know, out of many little rules I have for myself, one of them is not to put myself down, even as a joke. Because if you joke about putting yourself down all the time, you will eventually start kind of believing it. So it's not good for your mental health. And so if ever I say something that is putting myself down, the rule is that I have to say a cringe line. That way I'll feel uncomfortable and not do it again. Thank you for the sub. Thank you for the sub. I didn't even notice. Thank you so very much. Welcome. Oh God. Oh no. Thank you so much for the sub. So this is your true power, but it doesn't trump mine. That made from the hopes and dreams of the Tamagotchi and beloved senpai. I hate that. Funny. Good job. You did great. That was absolutely awful. Amazing. The Queen. The Queen of Cringe. Okay, I know somewhere around here is where I put my home. I said the Queen of Cringe, yeah. Because you came up with the cringe line so well. It makes you the Queen. That makes you boxy. Vanya, are you boxy? Have you been boxy this entire time? Oh, never mind. I'm dating myself again. Boxy was the Queen of Fortune. And it was very emo cringy. And she goes, I'm Boxy. Yeah. And then everybody thought that that was a time. No, if I am saying things to you specifically, and it makes you uncomfortable, or things are happening that are making you extremely uncomfortable, you can use the safe word, and I will back off of you. It kind of just lets me know that you're being overwhelmed or that you're dealing with a situation that's just making you feel uncomfortable. Because sometimes that can happen, you know? We finally found home. I would love some sweets. TBH. Good morning, Sarah. Thank you for the check-in. How you doing? Mm-hmm. Sugar. I know it won't come down. I've done that a few times now. I've done a few times where I've had just like a handful of candy for breakfast. Mmm. Yes, fine, yeah. I didn't have any breakfast food. So instead I had a handful of candy. Well, I didn't have any other food. The options is either no food or candy. So I ate candy. Mmm. Mmm. Bad food is better than no food. Actually, I hear that ice cream's pretty good for you. Um, for breakfast. This morning I'm eating bread. It's just bread. It's bread. I have little jelly packets. I'm gonna make myself a quick little sandwich here. Anyways. Oh yeah, 100%. Probably that's a good point here. The company's nice. Oh, fun. You followed me during your remembrance parade. I'm glad you remembered. Oh no, chat. We forgot the 5th of November. Gunfire, treason, and plot. I see plenty of reason the 5th of November was forgot. Bye, Siren, sweetie. Have a good one. Nobody remind me of the 5th of November. I think it's funny that V for Vendetta completely rewrote that day. 5th of November was when the Guy Fawkes plot occurred in England. In an attempt to blow up Parliament, Guy Fawkes and his cronies were wheeling, I think it was like gunpowder underneath the Parliament building, and got caught in the process of doing so. It was to, I think, like to reestablish full monarchy powers, so it wasn't a good thing. And it massively failed. Mm. Mm. Yeah, gotta be a. Well, that's because you don't live in England right now. You'll get all the turtle related questions. That's impressive. No, Lunar, you didn't drive 3 hours for a tattoo. You drove 3 hours to get that sticker, didn't you? Enjoy your sleep, Manda. Sleep well and good morning, sunny sunshine. I got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, talking about my girl. I've got the bees envy me. Chat, my Uma Musa left. There's my Uma Musa. Come here. Where do you think you're going? There we are. Stay. Behave yourself. I'm gonna make it bigger, don't you worry. It's all the what I had. Patience, patience, patience. Goofy. We're not freeing the horse. The horse is gonna leave me. It's my horse. Look at my horse. My horse is amazing. Give it a lick. Oh, it tastes just like raisins. With the stroke of its mane, it turns into a plane, and it turns back again when you tug on its winky. Ooh, that's dirty. Do you think so? Well, I better not tell you where the lemonade is made. Sweet lemonade. Sweet lemonade. Sweet lemonade. Yeah, sweet lemonade. Bum 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 bum. Get on my horse and take you to the universe. All about the places too. I think you find that the universe much covers everything. Shut up, woman, get on my horse. I have done a karaoke stream. I did an 8-hour karaoke stream. That was insane. But I'll only do that for like a reward, so maybe like. I guess I need to celebrate 20,000 on TikTok, as well as 3,000 on YouTube. I'm gonna free the man. I'm gonna free the. It's gonna be a bigger cage, don't worry. I only put humans in small cages. There. Hmm. Why? I just played it randomly. Hmm. There we go. Yes, he's perfect. Alright, our goal is to get to the nether so I can get observers, so I can make a bamboo farm. Wow, chat, y'all have friends? Since when? Who allowed this? Who allowed y'all to have friends? I don't remember agreeing to any of this. Vanya, you have friends. You have me. I don't know. I don't remember approving friends. Of course I'm your friend, Vanya. We've known each other for so long. We've been through thick and thin. You tried to suffocate me in my sleep that one night. How could we not be friends? That's fair. That's fair. Fine, I'm allowing only a few friends. You may each have 3 friends. Go pick them now. The other ones that you hang out with can be acquaintances or coworkers. I need you to go tell them that they're your coworker. Call up your least favorite friends and tell them that you only view them as a coworker. I'm gonna make a website called Only Friends where y'all can make friends. Well, pick your favorite rats if you have rat friends. It's okay. You can choose your favorites. Sorry, Dar, I didn't see this. I'm such a good doggy. Yep, you're legally required to talk to some people. Mm. Nap time is gold she actually. Surprise, surprise. They're a reincarnation. Nap time, go kick somebody with both your legs. I believe in you. I mean, children are people. Yeah, surprisingly. I actually don't believe children are sentient, so, Life begins at conception. Nah, life begins when they can make the first McDonald's order. Children are AI. It's true, it's true. I cannot believe you're skipping my midday stream to sleep. Upsetting. I might cry even. This is a joke, please sleep. Alright, I guess we can do this one. Let's go ahead and do this. Pull it all the way back in your throat. And we got this. Couldn't comment. Did because was feeling chemicals, but hello, dog. Favorite demon ever. Man, why is it your favorite one? Does like that Imagine Dragon song? Yeah. He's the, breathing in the chemicals. Bow. That's what we're looking for. Give me some more little spiky boys. I need all of these mans. These ones hurt your head. I believe it. Don't breathe them in. Hold your breath. Hold your breath, dawg. One second. Sarah, I did. Thank you so much for that. I meant to thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. I saw it after that stream and I took a look. I'm like, Sarah sent me some food gift cards so I can buy myself some food. I might have myself a really nice meal tonight. I'm a little excited, actually. The one issue that you have with that website is they're like, oh, it might be a scam, so I'm not gonna let you use this card until like a few days later. So I've been waiting for the time of day. But I really do appreciate it. I'm gonna take pictures of the food when I get it and post it up in the Discord. So thank you so very much, Sarah. Genuinely, thank you. I'm not buying a Big Mac, chat. I'm not buying a Big Mac. Yeah, you can go to my throne, actually. You want to get locked in the cage that badly? Yeah, come here. Sweetie. You shouldn't want to be locked in a cage that badly. It ain't good for you. Like, you should want to be in a cozy place like this instead. You know? Here. Here's some blankets. Here's some blankets for you. There's a little burger just for you, alright? And here's the cage, you idiot. Of course I'm putting you back in it. Thank you for the headpats. Enjoy your cage. I gave you blankets and a burger this time. Can't believe you thought I wasn't gonna lock you up. Of course I'm gonna lock you up. No, I'll be getting burger for breakfast. Fine. Hey, thank you for the biddies, Sarah. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. And don't worry, I will figure out how to get, Yeah, but do you also want the burger, Vanya? Or just 5 guys? I will figure out how to make the Throne Redeems show up on stream. I do apologize that they went before. I know, Vanya. Me too, me too. Vanya likes to lob softballs to people. Thank you for the bit, Solian. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Oh, you make very easy jokes so that people can make the joke and continue it because you're good at setting up comedy. Makes you a good mod because it promotes interaction with people. So there's a few times where I know you'll do a phrase that is just easy for people to make a joke off of because it's easy to make a joke off of it. Call me Court Jester. Can I call you Jesse? What, Jester? Yeah. Team Rocket's blasting off at the speed of light. Surrender now, prepare to fight. Meow, that's right. Good morning, Jesse. Oh, good morning, Jesse. Never mind, I can't call you Jesse anymore. We already got one, Vanya. To protect our world from devastation, to unite our people within our nation, to... No, I don't remember what the next part is. Oh, it's Vanya. It's obviously Vanya. It's still Vanya. Jesse dreams. To denounce the evils of truth and love. To defend the world from the stars above. Just dreams. To extend our reach to the stars above. There we go. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Y'all great, you know that. Thank you for the lucky, sweetie. I hope you're feeling okay. I know you weren't feeling the best the other day. You doing okay, hon? Now, is that right, darling? Why am I still doing Southern voice? Should I stop doing the Southern voice now? Thank you. I could use a different voice. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the berries. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. There we are. And now I wait for this. How much is it to make a cauldron? I need to see this. Alright, we do this, we do this, we do this. Cauldron. Fat. Let me go look up the recipe for a cauldron real quick. Oh yeah, that's always painful, isn't it? You know, you can give somebody a pet name or not date them, but you have to be dating them. What do you mean you're not dating them? Blah 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 blah. Stupid idiots. All of them so dumb. Imagine being not Skib. I'll never be a Skibber's nap. Thank you for the new follow. Welcome. Lexnar27. 270. Welcome. We are going to be stuck in this voice for a little bit longer. But do not worry, I don't always sound like this. I could sound like this. Or give me a few and I can sound like this too. There's just too much aura surrounding them, that's true. They have so much aura. They are awful. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Sunny Sunshine, that's me in March. I have such panic in my heart because when we come to the March, I might not have a job anymore either. Ooh, isn't that fun? Spooky. Thank you so much for the follow. Jess Uek. You heard my phone go off, so it's vibrations? Oh, wait a second. I feel like I know this person. Einen Moment, bitte. Interessante. Sorry, we're back. Oh no, somebody did a thing on TikTok. Also, lovely peoples. If you need to take the meds, please take your meds. If you've not eaten anything, please eat something. It is lovely rain we're having. It's so nice, isn't it? Vanya, what is happening? Please eat. I remember the 5th of November of gunfire treason in plot. I see no reason the 5th of November should ever be forgotten. It is Vanya you should be eating. I have this ready. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many quaint and curious falling of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcased of sorrow sorrow for the lost and know, for the rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here, forevermore. There you go. As requested. Come on, eat your meals, eat your food. If you got the food, eat it. I gotta make a budget guide for food, quick, easy budget guide. Ironically, Bricken is not bad for budget, easy cooking meals. I hate that it's not bad. Also remember, if you're very, very broke, canned vegetables is an option. But remember, there's a super high sodium intake on canned vegetables. So if you can, what's always better is to get the frozen veggies instead, for convenience sake. I'm sorry, but we do discuss Bricken. Bricken is love. Bricken is life. Bricken, it's what's for dinner. Oh, VTuber Mail started it. Which was genius, by the way. I mean, so smart. He had the biggest brain. He had the biggest brain. A brick and stick. I cannot do a brick unless we do it just in the Discord. Because Bricken is a creation of another VTuber. I would not, steal his baby. I am going to start a food stand at every single football arena, and I'm going to serve Bricken at every one of them, so eventually it gets into Scran, and Vonnie will have an existential crisis, and they're like, no, what? Oh, no. So Bricken is the point of Bricken is not only the fact that it's just a block of chicken, it's the laziness element. You take the Bricken straight out of the you take the ground chicken straight out of the package and you do nothing to it. You throw it on a tray and you just cover it in seasoning and throw it in the oven. The whole point is just so that there's nothing additional you do. Yeah, and so instead of having ground chicken that you've done something, made a meal out of, it's just a block of chicken. The goal is to replace, what's the word I'm looking for? To replace boiled chicken. Because a lot of bodybuilders will just do boiled chicken and rice. I was like, no. Bricken tastes better. That's fair. It's the season of the witch. Da, 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 da. What's Lapgang Ma? You are brave, very brave. Be careful doing too much tuna, though. It does have a lot of mercury content. Trying to find lava. Chad, if you see fire in the distance, please let me know. What if you want mercury? Vanya, you also want to explode. I'm not taking what you want into consideration. No. Stop trying to die like the old Chinese emperors. Why do you want to go like a Chinese emperor? Oh, I love dolmas. Dolmas are so good, but they are a pain to try to make. You want to go on a guillotine? No, Chad, sweeties, sweeties. What the frick? What the frick? What do you mean you want to go on a guillotine? What is happening? What is happening? Why do you want to be burned at the stake? Honeys. No. You should want to live forever so you can always watch me and never leave the cage. I can't believe you're all considering abandoning me. All of you are just like, I want to abandon Gene. I want to never be here ever again. My abandonment issues could never. I'll get you mean. Yeah. You want to get no, don't get thrown in the ocean. Not allowed. Don't say it like that, Vanya. La 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 lava chicken. Don't follow me for singing Lava Chicken. How dare you? I'm kidding, but welcome to the menagerie. Thank you so much for the follow. It's greatly appreciated. I'm making a lava generator. There you go. I need to start making an underground base. But I want it to be pretty. What if we carve out like a chunk out of this and then it just goes down a little bit, you know? Oh, we have the whole base out there. I feel like I want more of more. Want more of more. I like hobbit holes. Yeah. Vanya. Bad Vanya. I know what you're doing. Vanya has that smug look on their face. That sounds like you'd had a pretty deep cut. I would suggest cleaning the cut. Making sure to wrap a nice bandage around it properly and pushing it together. You will most likely have a scar there if it's just oozing a little bit. Do not use hydrogen peroxide. No, it's lies, Vanya. Don't speak truths. I mean, what? That's slander. I feel like I'm being slandered. No, I mean, wait, no. No, don't. I knew it. I always had a feeling, Vanya. I knew it. It's okay. Bonnie using this time to speak truth, thinking it's not real. Vonnie being greedy with it and getting me. That's a bad lie. Don't. Alright. No more lies, chat. No more lies. Will you take away the lies ability? Top 5 lies. Number 18 will make you go womp womp. I always had a feeling you're a big, strong man. I always had a feeling. 1, 2, 3. This might just work, actually. What do I just... You have no trauma? I'm glad to hear that. You have no concussion? That's good to hear. Worried if you did have a concussion. Every one of you are not goofy. Every one of you are not goofy. Alright, let's stop the lie thing. Let's stop the lie thing. I thought it was funny, but let's not do that right now. I appreciate it. What's the name of your horse? Yeah, let's do nice truths. Let me hear some nice things about yourselves. I'd love some nice things about you all. I want a myriad of truths. Give me some happy truths. You like Gene? Oh, I like me too. I do actually like me. Interesting. Wasn't sure about that one. Hmm. You're Skib. You are Skib. Maximum Skibbies. You like my dumb hair. That's fair. It is a little dumb. I get it. Mm. Plane go brr. Plane do go brr. I like planes. One day, Nap, you'll have to fly me somewhere. Would you do that for me? Would you fly me somewhere? Cool. I look forward to it. Boeing 747. Isn't there like a 737? We have the F1. That's a car. Shoot. The Black Hawk. Mm-hmm. Glad you watched me. No. Interesting. Oh, chat, we getting baked? You baking? Voidlings, you baking? You getting baked? Is that what's happening? One of my favorite things is seeing the quote out of context from Bao, where she's screaming that she needs to be bred. People just have it like with the cat getting turned into bread. And some people are only now just realizing she wasn't talking about the food. Yeah. Fair. I need to be bred. Wump. I'm a bread now. 2. Yeah, that's right. That should do it, right? Yay. Alright, how badly do you think this is gonna go? How badly do you think this is gonna go? You ready? Everybody ready? 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, not bad actually. Not the best, but not bad. Huh. No way. No way, look at that. Quartz go down the hole. Mm-hmm. Ain't got no buggies. Ain't got no buggies. Not the worst. I've had some awful spots. I've had ones that spawned me in like the middle of a lava ocean. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Aiko. Aiko? Hey, Aiko. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining and welcome to the menagerie. Mm. I'm driving in my car right after a beer. Hey, that bump is shaped like a deer. DUI. Now, how about you die? I'll drive 100 miles an hour. Did you know I'm filling up on gas? I'm gonna get your pen making, but pulverize with my Birkin trunk. Seems you're out of luck. No, driving in my car right after a bear. Hey, that bear is over there. It's too late. You have become bear. Do not die. You're not allowed. I'm sorry. It's not allowed. Allowed. Don't steal my Wi-Fi. I need that. Alright. We're gonna go make a mine real quick. We're gonna try to find... fine, you can have my Wi-Fi. Just a little bit though, not all of it. We're going to go find redstone. Let's go. Spell iCup. E. Chat, can you spell iCup for me? I can't do it. I need some help. No, I'm fine. Yeah, what painkillers do you take for headaches? Thank you, Anonymous, for the gift sub. I do really appreciate it. Thank you. Chat, what do you take for like body pains and like headaches? Acetaminophen. No, it's Tylenol. I'm not big on Tylenol. Advil, paracetamol. Do you have some other options? Oh, Advil and Tylenol. Not bad choices, not bad choices. Still not my favorites. Panadol. Hey, poison. You be what? Poison, you be what? Ibuprofen? Ibuprofen all night? That's wild. I can't believe ibuprofen. Yeah, Pebbles, ibuprofen. Can't believe you're profen. Ibuprofen. Thank you. I needed that. Ooh, that's a hole. Hello, hole. Me when I go to the bathroom. No. Anyways. Wait, does creatine actually help with body aches and stuff? Really? Fine. I'll get some creatine. Tunnel. If I could make a medicine that make people more patient, funny, kind, and happy in their skin, I'd name it a sedimina, a sedimina, a sedimina, metafen. Make people more patient, funny, kind, and happy in their skin. Oh, you want to hear a song that made me cry? I'll just sing the lyrics to you, but I need to go pull it up on my phone first. One second. I'm trying to find a song real quick. song goes. Actually, do you want to just listen to it with me? It made me cry. Give me a second while I find it. Hopefully this isn't too loud, but I can't lower the volume of TikTok, unfortunately. So we're gonna do... You ready? Hmm? It's really cute. I am not worthless and I am not. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. 'Cause I won't give up on me. Did I miss some lappers? Yo, that be lapping. They be lapping the piss. Sorry. I believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. I won't give up on me. I won't give up on me. I don't know what you're talking to, but if there's a rule, please don't push it. I imagine you would. I imagine everyone who has it does. And those who don't have it as well. Bones. I still haven't found redstone, have I? Rules are not made to be broken. That is the exact opposite purpose of rules. And anybody who says they are. So yes, please don't push anything. Because if this space is made uncomfortable for me or others, I will permanently ban you. And I will not take reconsiderations. Hi, Chub. I like your little Bulbasaur. Your Bulbasaur is very cute. I know. I like Bulbasaur a lot. I like the little dino boy. Why does everybody have the tippy tappies? Why are there so many tippy tappies? Gibbets, before you do every craft, you should be stretching out your fingers. Make sure that you always stretch your fingers before you do it, okay? before any hardcore gaming sessions and afterwards, y'all need to make sure you're taking care of your body. The fellow VTuber recently had to go on hiatus for a while to let their hands recover because they're in so much pain. All they were doing was playing FPS games and such. So yeah, please, please, please take care of yourselves. It takes so little to take care of your hands. It takes so little to take care of your hands. Just tiny effort. You got this. Your hands are so important. I am not worth this. Yet enough. Yeah, if you don't take care of your hands, I'm gonna eat them. I'm going to eat all of your hands, chat. Nothing you can do to stop me. Sometimes you just have a hunger that only hands can satisfy. You don't use them properly. Not my problem, honestly. Well, I will only let you keep your hands if you stretch your fingers before you do crafts. Arthritis ain't no joke. Neither's carpal tunnel. I'll turn up the game a little bit. Alright. I think just a little bit more redstone, we should be good. Then I can go make my bamboo auto farmer. I am not worth this, and I am not, and I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. That's why I won't give up on me. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's meant to say. I won't give up on me. Diamond. Nobody's perfect, that's meant to say. I won't give up on me. What a drag path. Oh, wait, you talking about like the One Punch Man thing? Or are we talking about something else? What are you twerking on me for? Oh, have you all seen the new One Punch Man though? Apparently it's not good. I don't know what happened to their budget, but I guess they spent it all on something. Yeah. Which is too bad because the whole like thing about One Punch Man was like it's insane animation. It's not difficult to be as tall as Nap Time though, they're tiny. Itty bitty nap so small. Small nap small. That was the Nap is Small song. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It'll be on Spotify in 3 years. Hi, Jibbers, Jibberoni. Jibbies, the jibber. Alright, lovelies, we are coming up on that time again. You know what time it is. Don't be booing. Thank you for the headbands, the hydrates, and all that. We're going to be sending you back into the void. Yeah, I know. It's the worst every day. Gotta go back. You don't wanna? Well, too bad. I know. Until one day we can do this full time. Imagine we get to the point where I can do this full time. We'll do 3-hour streams to start with. We'll do 8 hours of streaming every day. That's the goal. One of these days. Oh, I can almost make that, can't I? Oh, only a diamond pick real quick. Let's make a diamond pick. And next time we'll make an enchanting table. Yep, we're coming up on the end of stream, Beamy. By the way, lovelies, go check out Beamy. They are a fantastic, fantastic ASM artist. So EPs, so EPs. I have to end, Dar. I'm sorry, Dar. I gotta end. I am not worthless, and I am loved. I won't believe it if I say it enough. Nobody's perfect, that's plain to see. I won't give up on me. Chat, it's time. We're gonna raid into Hoshi. Okay? Well, been amazing. I appreciate you all so very, very much. I'll be back soon, I promise. Here's the raid message. Copy the raid message. And I will be back today, 4 p.m. MST. Mwah. Y'all are amazing. I see nap time ready over there. Bye, everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye.